Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and since it's Women's History Month, I'm here today to talk to you about Harlots Season 3. So Season 3 is the final season, and I do like Season 3. It's really good, however, it's not my favorite. I still think Season 1 is by far the best season ever. There was just so much drama in Season 1, and there was drama from all over. In Season 3, they seem to focus on one main storyline throughout the entirety of the season, and it gets kind of tired after a while. Like it's always been, these two main people in conflict with each other, which is still happening in Season 3. It's not who you want it to be. There is like character development somewhat with the characters that are still there. However, like I told you before when I reviewed Season 2, they gutted so many of their recurring characters. All these people from Season 1 and Season 2 are gone and are never mentioned again. It is very shocking because a lot of these people helped make the show what it was and stuff. And they're completely gone, and we have a bunch of brand new characters. Charles, he's actually only appears in episode 1 of Season 3, but then after that, he is completely gone. And I'm just kind of like, dude, why did they get rid of him for? I mean, he at least appeared in one episode to write him all proper, but they still could have got a number of mileage out of him and stuff. Plus, Miss Quigley is still in the show. And so it makes it for a very awkward season when all these characters you like are no longer in the show and stuff. And then they tend to like create new characters that are similar to the ones they got rid of, which really bugs the crap out of me when they do crap like that. And so it is still a good season and everything. But I just think, I don't know, like, it just wasn't as good as Season 1. Plus, there is a shocking death and that happens in episode 3 that I still, to this day, can't believe they did. I remember seeing this, thinking to myself, no, she can't be dead. Like, they just couldn't have killed her. And not like that. But she was gone. And there's no explanation as to why they wrote her character off. And the show was commissioned for 3 seasons. Now they could have got picked up for a 4th, if people wanted to, but for whatever reason they just never did. And Hulu didn't decide to renew it either. I was bummed when this show ended because I really enjoyed this show. It's very fascinating and stuff. Prostitutes from back in like the 1400s or whatever years from and stuff. And so it just didn't get that Season 4, and I was bummed. Another thing that kind of sucked is, Margaret Wells, like I said before, she had to get written off at the end of Season 2. Now, she does reappear for 4 episodes only. And there's 8 episodes total, so it was cool she got to come back for half. However, we needed her front and center for the entirety of the thing because of what happened and stuff. But she was on The Walking Dead at that time. And so without her fighting with Miss Quigley and so much other stuff, it just didn't feel the same. That was the heart of the show. Her and Miss Quigley constantly trying to one up each other and do harm to the other person and their business and stuff. And you no longer have that. And the new villains they have in this season, they get boring after a while. They was interesting at first, but then they just got boring after a while. And I still couldn't believe, some of the consequences that happened to a lot of the bad people at the end. And one shocking, team up at the end completely floored me. That's why they needed that 4th season to explain that. So let's get into some character profiles and stuff. I'll start off with Charles first, seeing how, he is the one who left. Him and Emily Lacey are broken up. He is being pursued by the debt collectors and stuff, so they can throw him into debt jail. He is completely penniless and stuff. His mom is in the crazy house. He goes to see her, only to see her be tortured, then runs out like his typical self. And so, like, she's furious and stuff because he helped put her there. So he's been scrounging for money and he's trying to get something worked out with that of Emily and stuff. And so no, Lucy. And so he's trying to like go into business with her. She doesn't want to and stuff. And he's just out of his luck. And it really sucks because he's not that bad of a character. Him and Cherry aren't really dating and stuff. And like, he does not want to go to jail, but he can't pay the debt collectors and stuff. And so one time he's talking to Fanny, which is his first time ever talking to her. She gives him some advice and she gives him a shilling. With that, he decides he's gonna flee to France and everything. At least I think that's where he goes. And after that, he is gone. Like, he is completely gone from the series and stuff. He's mentioned a couple of times, mostly in vain by his mother. But, like, he is gone. And I was shocked to see him leave. He's like the son of Mrs. Quigley. He dated both Emily Lacey and also, like, Cherry and stuff. And Cherry was really sad because she's all like, he will take care of her. So now, because he lost the home, Miss Quigley's home. And so Cherry doesn't have a place to live. And, and it was just so shocking to see him leave, especially after how he turned to his mom and did the right thing. I don't know what the writers were thinking when they got rid of him, because it's kind of like, none of the stars will explain like why some people were like written off, but he is gone. Charlotte Wells. Though Charlotte Wells really put like her footprint like on this show with season 1. The stuff she went through in season 1 was like amazing. Her constantly bickering with her mom, her fighting, or Miss Quigley trying to steal her from her mom, only for her to go to jail and all this other crap, and and being framed for like murder and stuff. And she really went through it in season 1, and in season 2 she tried to take down Mrs. Quigley. In season 3, of course, now since her mom is presumably dead and everything, she took over her mom's prostitution house. In comes these new bad guy, the Pinter brothers. And one of them, Isaac, falls in love with her. First, he's banging her and tells her, oh, so we're going to start charging you for protection. If you don't pay, we're going to take your place. Imposing his will on, like, her establishment. And so, yeah, they're basically thugs and everything. So, of course, she doesn't want to do it, but she has to say it because, they was really, like, roughing them up. So him and her go constantly back and forth. They're one-upping each other. She like steals like his money and stuff. He tries to burn down the house with people actually there. Fanny and her baby was there and stuff. And so he's a really terrible person. But in typical Charlotte Wells fashion, she is still banging him and everything. It's kind of like a cat and mouse game. Things get so bad because like the Pinter brothers lose out on a deal. And the brother Hal thinks it's Charlotte's fault. So he starts to fight Isaac on a balcony. Charlotte tries to break it up and she gets smacked by that of Hal. And she falls over the balcony staircase, hits her head in a pool of blood. I was like, no, they did not kill her off, but they did. This was a shocking death because she was a main character in the first 2 seasons. So much that part of the show revolved around her. And for them to kill her off was just completely mind-boggling. I don't know what the writers were doing. So, of course, that took like shockwaves throughout the fandom, and getting rid of all these other characters, then killing her off, knowing her mom isn't gonna be in the show that much because she's in The Walking Dead. You could tell the writing was on the wall with this show probably being its last, and it was. And so I remember the fans were just like completely shocked online and stuff. I was just like, how can you get rid of her? So of course they have her funeral and people are there to see her. Miss Quigley's out the crazy house and she tries to pay her respects only to get blocked and everything. Isaac goes completely crazy and is mourning, like, Charlotte very, very hard to the point of stealing her dress and putting on another prostitute so he can bang. Speaking of which, there isn't that much banging and slanging going on in the first 4 episodes, but towards the last 4, then you start seeing that stuff happen, which makes sense because it's called harlots. Now, one thing I'm very glad for: no more naked man booty. Thank God. I got so sick and tired of seeing that, because in this show you think you would see women naked, but you don't. You see the men naked, and it's gross. Might as well talk about her now. Margaret Wells. She's back in episode 3, the episode in which her daughter dies. Since faking her death and everything when she was supposed to be hung, they forced her to go to America to start a new life. She gets married over there and comes back to see what's all going on. And so she secretly finds her family, and they're thrilled that she's alive. So she's married to this one man. I forget his name, but he's a very, very nice man. And he knows everything that's going on with her, but he doesn't care. But he's actually in love with her, which causes problem between him and William North, to where they argue a lot over Margaret. So doing like this banquet type thing, Margaret is dressed like a man. And then, so of course, Charlotte dies. She grieves extremely hard because of this, to the point where when she is in the ground, she's all like, why are they putting her in the ground for? Like, and it's like, duh, she's dead. So of course she wants bloody vengeance, because you know how she is. You don't mess with Margaret Wells girls and stuff. And so she's constantly asking around, and she assumed the Pincher brothers did it. But then Emily Lacey is lying, and because she saw Miss Quigley. So she starts to lie and lies to the magistrate and everything. And so first they think it's Quigley, but it's not. So at some point, Margaret's been carrying around like, a teeny tiny pistol ever since she came to America. Because, if they find her, they'll hang her. And so, like, she badly, badly, badly wants that of the Pincher brothers. Well, slowly, everybody starts to find out she is alive. The magistrate, Emily Lacey, Miss Quigley, like you name it. So, of course, some people are using this to their benefit. The Pincher brothers use it to their benefit. Because they were supposed to have a deal with her husband to buy land. He didn't want to sell it to them, but when they find out she's alive, they blackmail him. He gets to the point where he's all like, look, my boat's heading back to America with or without you and your kids. She is desperately trying to have her family go with her. William and Jacob said they're not going because they'll just be houseboys and everything, because slavery was still around in America at that time. Emily doesn't want to go because she has her own business. And Margaret doesn't want to leave without them. And so, like, it gets to the point where her and her husband are starting to, like, get into it and stuff. And, like, even her and William get into it because she sees William come out the bedroom of another woman. But he didn't do anything with her. At least we don't think he did. But you know how she gets like super jealous and stuff. And it gets to the point that when she leaves, finally, him and her on a rocky like footing and stuff, they're arguing with each other, don't even give each other no goodbye hug or kiss. And it's so sad because she deeply loves this man, And so her and Nancy aren't even getting along. Nancy is so upset at the death of Charlotte that like she's willing to just like leave and Margaret won't let her. Even pulling the pistol out on that like Nancy talking about I'll shoot you if you leave and everything. But of course she doesn't and everything. But Nancy won't even give her a goodbye hug or a kiss because she keeps talking about how like Margaret always messing things up and stuff like that. And Nancy's really going having a hard time with this, which is weird because she keeps saying you took my Charlotte when she talking to the Pincher brothers, but it's like her and Charlotte never had anything together. Now, of course, her and Nancy, Margaret, they did and stuff. So, of course, by episode, what is it, 6, Margaret leaves for a final time, and she thinks she got vengeance back on one of the Pincher brothers because one of them ends up getting shot, but it's the wrong brother who killed her daughter. Isaac Pincher, along with his brother, are just grifters. They're gamblers. They're snakes and con artists and everything. They're terrible people. I already told you how he burnt down Margaret Wells' home, how he keeps doing all this stuff to Charlotte and everything, but he is in love with her nevertheless. When that business deal go awry, that's when she ends up getting killed, and he goes nuts in the head. Well, it's getting to the point where he feels that, after blackmailing Margaret's husband, he got the deal back where he could buy that land. Now him and his brother are rich, but his brother wants to split it 3 ways with Emily Lacey. He does not want to. So he tells her, you can take my share and you have to get out of like town and stuff. So he's supposed to meet her at the docks. She tells Nancy and Margaret. They go there to confront him. He pulls a pistol out at them. And he told her, I would have gave you the money if you just would have left, but I knew you were going to betray me. So he tries to shoot at them, but he misses. And then Nancy kills him with her tiny pistol. And I was like, holy crap. But the thing is, he's not the one who killed Charlotte. And so, like, he's dead. How his brother is black. I think he's mixed though, but he's mixed with black. He loves his brother to death. When his brother dies, he mourns him so hard and puts his clothes on. And so, but the thing is, he loves Emily Lacey. They work together at the tavern and everything and making money. And so when they tricked, or blackmailed Margaret's husband and they got the money for that land, he literally tells Emily, like, I did this for you, I did this for us and everything, and we're going to share this land together. Like, he truly loves that woman and everything. He's not playing around. But of course, she was there when his brother got shot, but she doesn't tell him until this new lady who's like a prostitute who hates Emily tells him. He later locks her in a room. So she's back to where she was in season 1, being locked in rooms. When every time she gets out, she goes, of course, to Mrs. Wells's place, but they don't want nothing to do with her because she keeps lying. And so, like, when he finds that she's there, he goes berserk, crazy. But Emily is in love with him too. So, he pulls a gun, or Nancy goes to the bar, pulls a gun on him, he pulls it on her. Emily causes both of them to put their guns down, and I'm thinking to myself, what? He's not going to jail? He's not gonna die after what he did? But I didn't even tell you the worst thing other than accidentally killing Charlotte. Harriet, remember Harriet, the black prostitute who used to be a slave? Well, she gets mixed in with this slave trader dude, and he wants Harriet kidnapped so he can put her in sex slavery. Hal agrees to it, and he agrees to take other black people. He's black himself, and he's trading them in for slaves. So Emily worked something out with the Navy. The Navy has been recruiting guys against their will. They grab them and forces them to work in the Navy. So she set it up to where he gets to be put in the Navy, and that's his punishment. And I'm just kind of like, dude, arrest him and everything. Emily Lacey. I love saying her name. She has a lot to do this season, which I'm really glad because she's a really good actress and stuff. And so she runs a tavern and she has her own working girls. She lets Cherry sell condoms outside because Cherry has no place to go. And so, like I said before, she's madly in love with Hal and would do anything for them, even to the point of lying, saying that both of those men would with her when Charlotte dies and stuff. But people can tell that she's lying, in like typical fashion. Like it's weird because she turned herself around from season 1 and 2. In season 1 and 2, she was kind of like the frenemy of like, the Wells. But now she's a little bit of a better person. But she slips back in her old ways with all that lying. But, she just wants everybody just to stop, calm down, and get along. But when she finds out that the Pincher brothers did have something to do with Charlotte, and later that of like Hal, she still sleeps with Hal and she still stays with him knowing all this. So she can't be trusted. So of course when things go bad, she goes running to the Wells house. Fanny, who's now in charge, doesn't want nothing to do with her, and neither does Nancy. But Nancy keeps trying to help out. And Nancy literally tells her, I have done so much for you, and like all you do is stab people in the back. Because when Hal went berserk, she had to hide out at their place and stuff. And she went back to him again. And she's only really thinking about herself because she's literally said like, like none of the men have like treated me so nice and like, gave me land and stuff like that. Her and Charles thing, Charles tried to provide for her too, but she kept sleeping around. But of course, Charles's money comes from his mom and stuff. And Charles is too much of a baby boy and stuff, like a mama's boy. And so I could not believe it when she let Hal get away with everything, only to set him up and force him to join the Navy. Which I couldn't believe that's how they made people join the Navy back in those days. Like just grab you off the street and just like make you join and stuff. Nancy doesn't do much other than help Charlotte out until Charlotte dies. She takes it so hard that she literally wants to leave and stuff. Well, after Margaret left and stuff, she later partners with Isabella to help Isabella out with her brother. When Isabella is so happy, she kisses Nancy on the lips. And Nancy is kind of going to start kind of like this relationship with her towards the end of the season and off screen. However, when Nancy killed that of Isaac, she was beside herself. She could not live with herself. She could not function and stuff because she said she has seen people die, but never by her own hand. And that's a very traumatic thing, you know what I'm saying? Because Nancy's such a very tough person, but you thought she might have roughed somebody up before, but never did. Now I will say she had better story arcs than the other seasons and stuff, but this season was a little bland. Like I said, 'cause it keeps focusing on the Pinchers a lot. Cherry doesn't have a big role in this. She's homeless and stuff and selling condoms on the street in a very funny bit when a man wants like a super size, but she gives him a tiny one. And basically, her and Emily are still friends and stuff. When Lyda gets out and everything, she goes back to working for Miss Quigley, spying on people and stuff like that. But then she gets to a point where she's done working for Miss Quigley. And then she starts working for Franny. And they become partners when Mrs. Wells has to leave and stuff. Franny, once again, doesn't have much to do. She had a little bit more of a traumatic, story arc in season 1. Basically, whenever her friends and stuff need something, she goes back to that one cop dude who she had a baby from in season 1. And so for the most part, she really just don't do nothing. She helps out with the Wells and stuff, but she's mostly off screen and don't really get to say much. Her story starts to cook towards the end when Margaret puts her in charge of the brothel. And there we get to see her wear a new dress and her hair as a madam and everything. And she really does take charge, only to tell Lucy she has no idea what she's doing. And that's really about it. Lyda Quigley, boy, this actress is so good. You can tell she's Shakespearean trained, or at least theater trained. When she's in the crazy house, they put her to a chair, spin her around, and she does such a great acting job. And it's great to see Miss Quigley get her upcomings and everything, because of like all the stuff she did. She sold women into like sex slavery. She sold women to get like sexually assaulted and murdered. She has kidnapped girls. She does not care. She is just straight up evil and everything. And so she meets a woman named Kate Bottomley in the crazy house. Kate got sent there because she got caught like doing it and stuff. So when Kate is being assaulted by one of the doctors there, something happens to where they're both able to escape. And when they escape, she goes to Mrs. May's house, the woman who once was with her father and taught her how to be a prostitute. Miss May is as nasty as she can come. And so because she's treating Lyda so terribly, you start to feel bad for her, which I hate because she's so evil. And like when Miss May chokes on like a fish bone, Lyda's just there looking at her and lets her die. And then she goes through her stuff and realizes she's the sole heir. So which means she gets to get her house back. Only problem is Lucy and this new lady are in the house and they have a Molly house going on there. So at first, Miss Quigley is slowly going back to her old ways. With this new girl, Kate, she plans on pimping her out. Then Miss Quigley straight up goes to her old ways. She's talking to Mr. Fix on William again and everything. She's positioning girls and doing things they aren't supposed to be doing. She's back to her old evil nasty self. And when she finds out Margaret Wells is alive, she tells the magistrate. Only for Margaret to be all like, you know what, I quit, like I'm done, like you win and everything. So defeated, she feels sorry for Margaret to the point where she doesn't rat her out and promises to take care of Lucy. Well, she hands Lucy over to Harcourt Fitzwilliam and everything, drugged and everything, right? Now, Quigley is doing so much bad stuff. She put Lucy in debtor's jail because Lucy's partner is the one who's really in debt. And so she broke up the Molly house so she can get that back. And then so like when Lucy was like drugged, waking up, both of them just stabbed the crap out of like Harcourt, like Caesar style. Then the most shocking thing happened that I did not see coming. Lucy and Quigley decide to team up at the very end of the episode. They're gonna go to business together. I'm just like, how? That is like your family's mortal enemy. She has screwed Lucy over. She has screwed Charlotte over, and she screwed Margaret over. How could she work for that woman? And I hate how they go the sympathetic route with her, but the whole making you feel sorry. But thank God they went back to like, her evil, nasty ways. But I wanted to see her go back to the crazy house or at least be arrested. And none of that happened. So she gets to get away with everything again. But then when she didn't give Lucy to that man, it shows that she kept her promise and kept Lucy safe. And it's weird she's having this change of heart all of a sudden because she is so evil. Kate Bottomley, she's brand new to this season. And she's played by Daisy Hurd. Or no, not Hurd. Daisy Head. I think that's her name. Who is, the dude who played Giles and Buffy the Vampire Slayer show? That's her dad. Now, the first time I ever saw her was on a show called Guilty. I do not like the show Guilt. No, it's not called Guilty. It's called Guilt. I don't like Guilt. Wasn't a very good show. Her acting was so-so. It needed a bit polishing and stuff. Not sure she ever took acting lessons or not, but she was all right. It was just she was the lead, and I don't know, it just felt weird. And she had talked with an American accent. It was just kind of weird. Then I saw her in the last Underworld movie, and I forgot how her acting was in that. But then she was in this, and she got a whole lot better. She's very like striking and everything, the way like she looks and stuff. Basically, she was caught doing it with a guy, and her parents put her in the crazy house. They thought she was dead, and so she starts to work for Miss Quigley. Her and Miss Quigley escape together, and Miss Quigley is taken care of course, because she wants to make her a working girl. She pimps her out to that of Harcourt, Fitzwilliam, and that of Prince Henry and stuff. Basically, Harcourt wants to be governor of like the prince's estate, and he needs her help. Everybody is always telling her stay away from Quigley, but she won't listen and stuff. Even so much as telling people she's Miss Quigley's daughter, and but she's just like a lost girl. Now, when she was in the crazy house, one of the doctors all like, "Oh, we need to treat you. In order for you to get rid of your like sexual craze, I need to put my hand up in you and force all that ecstasy out of you." Basically, he's assaulting her and stuff. And so her and Quigley managed to escape by saying she needs another treatment, then making all the crazy people come out there and attacking folks, and so they like split. She falls in love with a new magistrate and everything while she's messing around with the prince. But things with her and the prince aren't going all that smoothly because he wants a person who will talk nasty to him. So she has to learn. She learns some cherry. And so when she realizes that Quigley might not be the best for her, and Harcourt is just disgusting because he keeps threatening her and trying to touch her and stuff, Isabella, his sister, works with that of Kate, and they talk to the prince and everything about what he did and stuff because Kate tells him her dark secret. And so the king banishes that of Harcourt and everything. And I guess him and Kate are gonna stay like together. And but she really does like the magistrate dude and everything. But of course they can't be together because she's with that prince dude now. So who really knows? Isabella Fitzwilliam, she is still in the show and she's dating Charlotte until Charlotte dies. She's having problems with her daughter Sophia. Sophia leaves after like the first episode because somebody wrote a scandal about Isabella. It was of course Quigley, and so it was in the newspaper. And her daughter's all like, "Tell me the scandal, tell me the scandal. Like, I won't be like ashamed of you if you messed around with like a gardener or something like that, the hired help." So of course her mom will not tell, and she leaves. She falls in love with a guy, some hired help dude, and leaves. Turns out this dude was paid by her uncle slash father and everything. Yeah, that's the dark secret. So she disappears until towards a couple of the episodes at the end, and she's constantly in plain sight for people to see, but they forget what she looks like. So when her husband tries to like pimp her out and everything, she finds out it's because the uncle's doing. And so she leaves and goes back to the mall. And so the mom tells the prince what happened. When she was 14, her brother forced himself on her, and she had her child. So Sophia is both the niece and daughter of Harcourt and everything. And so she stays with her mom after that. And of course, like I said before, Isabella stays with Nancy and everything, which is kind of weird because she got over the whole Charlotte thing very quickly. The thing with Harcourt in this season is that, remember that prostitute from season 2 who he gets with at the end and everything? Those two have a baby, a boy, and he's thrilled. He's constantly holding his son. He's happy. The prostitute lady wants nothing to do with him, saying that he's a monster and keep him away from her. He drugs her and gives her to Quigley so she can start pimping that girl out again. Well, the woman just wants her baby, so Isabella helps by kidnapping the baby and giving it to her. He wants the baby back, so he arranges Sophia to meet Isabella and everything. Well, it turns out, sorry, he wants to be the prince's governor. So he's using, Quigley and Kate and everything, so that Kate can get in good with the prince, and she does. He does become the governor. Only problem is Lucy wants him out of the picture because of all the bad stuff he did, the sexual assaults, the murders, stuff like that. So he wants her silenced, but Quigley won't do it. So Quigley drugs that of, like, like I said before, Lucy, only for her to wake up and both of them go on a stabbing spree of that hardcore. It would have been more satisfying if it was Isabella to do this, but at least he's gone. And he's very much the slimy, nasty person he always is. But it's weird. He's slimy in a charming kind of way. Harriet still has her own brothel, and she caters to this one white dude who gets jealous every time she talks to this black dude named Jack. And Jack is the new character. He's a boxer and he works for William North. And he kind of has that same role as the other black guy from season 2. A boxer, he messes around with a prostitute, he screws up, he gets roughed up. It's literally the same crap. So why not keep the dude from season 2? At least he was established on the show. So Harriet caters to the white dude because he pays lots and lots of money. But Jack is like in love with her. Basically, the white dude is like, very, very rich. And he has a wife, and she doesn't like the idea of Harriet having one of her dresses. So she tells Harriet all about her husband. Turns out he has a plantation filled with slaves and everything and tortures them, but he loves black women. So because of this, Harriet wants nothing to do with him, and she stays with Jack. This man gets so jealous that he has Jack kidnapped and by slave hunters. Then he wants Harriet himself, and that's when he goes to one of the Pincher brothers to kidnap Harriet, which they do. And so she's put in the back of like this thing along with Jack and full of like other black people. The wife of the racist dude, she tells William where like to find them and stuff, and then they stop the convoy only to free the black people. Those that have home had to run to them very quickly, but the other ones were escaped slaves. So they just went back with Harriet, and no telling what happened to them after that. And so she doesn't have that big of a role as she did in the first 2 seasons. And you only see her kids only like once in this show. We see a lot of William North this season, which is really great. He has like his own boxing thing full of like young black dudes and everything. And so he's doing that for the first couple of episodes when, like I said before, Margaret comes back. Actually, before she comes back, he's dealing with the Pincher brothers and stuff. And then Margaret comes back, and it's like a happy reunion only for her to get like jealous, and those two have it out. Well, his biggest thing is when he finds out Jack got kidnapped by the slave hunters and stuff. And he rallies up like so many like the black people in town, telling them, stick together, don't be alone and everything. And we have to go looking for them. And he really does, everything he can to like, get justice for like his people, and also justice for like Charlotte Wells and like Margaret and stuff like that, because Lucy's trying to get her pardon and everything. And I really like how they stepped up his character this season and made him to like a true hero. Like there's a reason why they call him Pa, because like Margaret Wells, all her kids have different dads, and he's the dad of Jacob. But Lucy and Charlotte calls him Pa because this man is literally like the only father they have, and he will put foot to somebody's backside if you mess with them and stuff. The new magistrate dude, he is like, a really, really, really good like cop. Like I really like Stuart Knox, and this dude, he's for the law, so he's gonna get retribution somehow. And so like he's not corrupt, he's snarky and everything, and he falls in love with that of Kate. And so he's the type of person that he wants proof before he just goes and hangs somebody. And that's like really great in their thing. And he really does help out like the main characters in this show. Even to the point when one of the dudes is getting blackmailed, he doesn't want to shut down the Molly house, but he has to. But the one main Molly boy, he puts him in a safe place so he doesn't have to go to jail. Lucy, when she finds out Quigley's place is for sale, she wants to buy it. But there's another lady who wants to buy that of Quigley's place. Um, Mrs. Harvey, Elizabeth, and her son Fredo. And so they decide they're all gonna go into business together and buy the place. They're gonna turn it into a Molly house. Of course, a Molly house is a male prostitute who's gay. And who also sometimes dresses as a woman. And so like the front of it is like a tailor shop. And so Lucy, she's being her own boss, and she's a pretty good boss, better than that of like Charlotte, and a little bit better than Margaret and stuff. However, her partner has a shady past. With Quigley making everything worse for everything, Quigley wants her house back and will do anything she can to get it. Lucy's biggest thing is that I think this man name is Croft, James Croft, Lord James Croft. He's kind of like a very important person in town. He's also secretly gay, and he's messing around one of her business partners. So as a front, he beards her and everything. She's totally cool with it. So they keep up for like appearances and everything. And so, but then Quigley wants her house back so bad, she has Lucy put in debtor's jail and stuff. And so because of that, Lucy can't testify against Harcourt. And when she does get out, like I said before, Quigley made her business partner Elizabeth literally trade places with Lucy. And then her and Lucy literally become partners together, which is so odd and weird. And so when Margaret tells Lucy, come with me to America, Lucy won't go because she's all like, look, I got my own business and everything. And they have it out and stuff, talking about like from season one, talking about how you pimp me out and everything like that. And she's really come a long, long, long way from that of season one. I love how developed her character is and stuff from season one, two, and now three. And I just don't like the fact that she's with Quigley now. Elizabeth and Fredo, like Harvey, they are the brand new characters of this season. Elizabeth is very, very, very much in debt. So much that they're constantly having to like set up shop one place, flee that place, set up another shop, and she's constantly getting married over and over and putting her husbands in debt. One of her husbands is in debt jail. When he gets out, he wants his money. This other guy who's like Italian, she needs silk like outfits from him. So she weasels her way into him, hoping that he will like marry her and stuff. And so next thing you know, when Margaret Wells ruined things for her by blabbing, he realizes that, wait a minute, you're conning me and everything, and that you have no money and this and that, and you're not going to be able to reimburse me. So he contacts the like debt collectors and takes a lot of the stuff and gets it sold. And so she's nothing more but a con artist and everything. When she first showed up, I thought she was going to be like the new big bad, the new Miss Quigley, but she wasn't. She's actually a very nice person. Her and Lucy go into business together when they buy Miss Quigley's place. But then Lucy finds out towards the end that the money that what's the name used to buy the place, there was no money. And they started up a Molly house and everything. And so like business is booming until all the craziness stuff starts to happen. And because of that, like they get found out, the place get raided because Miss Quigley sold them out. And then Lucy went to debtor's jail. Well, her and her son were gonna flee until Mr. William made them come back and everything. And the way her and William talk, it kind of seemed like they might start something up if they were to get another season, which of course what made Margaret like really jealous and pissed off. And so like, she takes Lucy's place in debtor's jail because Quigley wants her to. And so, like, but she's willing to actually go, and because she says she'll never go back because she was there before. But when she's there, her son is like, decorating the place to make it look nicer and stuff. And so I wish they would have built her character up more. But the only thing about her is that she's just in debt and she just owes money and stuff. So she's not real, like, she's a cool character, and I like the way the actress acts. But I wanted her to have more like something to sink her teeth into, something more like cutthroat or like shady or something. Her son is her biracial, half Japanese, half black son, and he's the Molly boy and everything. Now Lucy, I think, said that those two aren't related. I don't know if they are or not, but I'm pretty sure they are. And he's a really nice character. He falls in love with Mr. Croft. Croft, like I said before, has Lucy as like his beard. Now Fredo knows that, but he gets very, very, very jealous of it. And so, like, when they all get found out and everything, him and another Molly boy decide they're gonna start a relationship, which is weird because they never like talk. Because him and Croft got found out by Quigley and she blackmailed him, and to the place is like shut down. Other than that, he doesn't have much to do on the show other than fall in love with Croft. He wants to be like exclusive. Croft, like, yo, man, we can't come out and everything because they used to torture people back in those days if they were like homosexuals and everything, giving them like pills to where they won't get like a rise, and beating them, jailing them, all kind of crazy stuff. And so, yeah, this season was way more dramatic and a bit more darker and stuff, but it was more dramatic than the other season. Only problem is it didn't have that flair that the other seasons had when they was being dramatic and stuff. Like, it just felt so doom and gloom because you knew, like, the Pincher brothers were so bad and the entire season just revolved around them. It really felt like the entire season was just the Pincher brothers and stuff, which is not supposed to be the case because it's called Harlots and everything. And it's sad to see what happened to Charlotte. Charlotte proved once again, like, she always screws up. She can't even handle her own business. And she died somewhat of a failure and everything. And, like, I just knew when Margaret wasn't going to be able to be in every episode to carry the show, it just wasn't going to be the same, because it really wasn't. And there are some characters here I really wish they would have explored more. Like Fanny. Fanny's been there since season 1, but she rarely does anything. And so it's still on Hulu, and it's still a great series and everything. But I still say season 1 is absolutely the best. Happy Women's History Month, everybody. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.